Good morning. We are live on the Falcons podcast. It is the third straight non-winning Monday of the Falcons podcast as we ponder, well, we know what went wrong, but why it went wrong this time in a loss to the Chargers where the defensive adjustments for the team looked fantastic. They came out in basically a 3-4 defense where they had five guys on the line and they were attacking the quarterback, had their best defensive performance in that I can remember in a while, hold a team under 200 yards, two penalties for 10 yards for the entire time. You get you get some turnovers on offense, and you still end up losing a game. Nick, good morning.
Good morning.
Not familiar. We call this is another way, you know how some cuss words can have some multiple meanings. Well, this is another way we throw in the phrase down here in the South, falconing, finding new and interesting and improved ways to lose games that you should win. Nick, the Chargers looked terrible yesterday.
Yeah.
They looked terrible. And the Falcons looked worse. I mean, I don't know that they look worse. The Falcons on the whole looked okay. Kirk Cousins, that was I like his worst, one of his worst games of his entire career. Certainly is worse in a Falcons uniform. And the thing is, there were signs early, Nick. It wasn't just he was missing guys early and often for first downs down the field, and then it got worse.
Yeah, he missed on that first drive, second drive, he missed Mooney for play. He missed Mooney again later in the first half. There was a few misses here and there in the first half. Signs of warning, the check engine light blinking. And after the Falcons weren't able to run the ball efficiently, I thought they did so well on the first two drives, but after that was taken away, the offense was DOA and Cousins just couldn't help himself, listening to the voices, throw it to the other team. And you could see it. I mean, it would have been the first interception. Shout out to that cornerback who came up with the pick six and everything. But that first one where he double clutched it, I think he believed it was probably a cover zero look, end up being a cover two. And you can see his brain malfunction, his mechanics, oh, don't throw it. Oh, it's too late. I've already decided I'm going to throw it, and right to the other team. So really just a horrific game. The last interception, I'm not going to fault him too much. What was it? 4th and 12. You have to have it at that point. But the first three, I mean, each one worse than the last. So yeah, it's a really unfortunate game. And it's really unfortunate that we have to sit here and talk about Cousins' failures, short-circuiting, whatever you want to say it is, when the Falcons had one of their best defensive performances I can remember in years. I mean, on the day, the Chargers go just 10 total first downs compared to 24 for the Falcons, 5 rushing, 5 passing, 3 for 11 on third down, 0 for 2 in the red zone, 56 yards rushing, just 150 gross yards passing. That's including the rushing attempts from Herbert. So, I mean, it's just what a unfortunate game because the Falcons defense showed up. This looked like a good defense on the whole today against an okay Chargers offense. And Kirk Cousins falls down and loses the game.
I don't care if you were playing Bryce Young before, in September's version of Bryce Young. You held him to 38 yards in the second half. That's an NFL team in a dome. It's not like we have weather here. I mean, you outgained them almost 250 yards to 38 in the second half, and you get outscored 8-6. Just it was really unbelievable. And apologies again. I had a pinned comment on YouTube. My Facebook fans, followers, and people that are watching probably didn't know. The school bus didn't show up this morning, so I had to run my son to his high school, which is a little farther away than the elementary school and the middle school. So I had to push back in 30 minutes. So thanks for bearing with us. And I think one of the comments of the day for Mad Scientist says, "Don't worry, Scott and Nick, the Falcons missed the bus as well." And yeah, it's as you're watching this now that Koo's missing some field goals too, it just always feel at least once a season I feel like Lucy pulling the using that gif of Lucy pulling the football out. 6-3, okay, we're gonna make this kick this time, right? And it's just, again, like I said, there's different ways we use the word falcon and falconing, and this is what it means. This is what it means is One game you miss 3-4 field goals against New Orleans to lose by 3. Another game you don't show up on defense. You get that straightened out. Now your quarterback, spits a bit. It's just it's frustrating without a doubt. But we do go live, and apologies for being late, but we do go live because we do like having the conversation with y'all. And it's y'all have seen me get fired up, get passionate, mad about different things, but that's usually about like premeditated decisions. Like when we start talking about signing this guy or drafting this guy or game planning, I'll get fired up about that stuff. What are you going to do when your quarterback blows a gasket? Play another one, maybe? That's something we can talk about a little bit. What I want to talk about right now, though, is Michael Ronquillo coming in red hot. The sunrise, he's with us this morning. He's out in Tucson, so it's always early for him when he's out here, and he's still with us here every day. So thank you so much with a $50 super chat, keeping these lights on as we turn the calendar month in December. Happy hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving holiday and the holiday season as it is approaching. And Michael, you certainly make ours better for sure. So thank you so much. Mike comes in with the question, Nick. Thanks for the super chat, Mike. He says, at what point do they put Penix in? At best, I see a 9-8 finish. Defense looks good. They had 5 sacks. Yeah, they upped their total in week 13 by 50% in 1 week.
And Herbert had not been taking sacks really this season. I mean, he's been
taking 3 a game on average.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking I must be mixing up the interceptions.
It was like 21 sacks in the last 7 games. So he's been taking right on 3 per game. But
okay,
still, that means 0 for Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been frustrating. I mean, he did everything defensively that we could have really asked for in this game, other than, maybe turn the ball over a little bit more. That one that McConkey fumbled that just bounced right into that player trailing him there. That was pretty unfortunate. Granted, you went 50 for 50 on fumbles, forced fumbles to fumble recoveries. So that's to be expected, I guess. That's your average probability there. But yeah, really, really unfortunate. And Scott, we didn't talk very much yesterday, other than you sent me the title and whatnot. But I don't know if you saw the report that came out Friday, Jeremy Fowler, ESPN. I came across this yesterday where they were saying that this is the tweet here. Former Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins' future with the Falcons rides on these next 6 games, per Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. Fowler says Cousins' results have been pretty good, but not optimal. This was before the game Sunday, folks. And if he doesn't deliver over this next stretch, the Falcons would explore trading him this offseason, given they have Penix. So tab 1 in the not going very well over the final 6. And I don't know if the start of Penix's career or whatever starts this next game here against. I mean, I don't think I'd want my rookie's first game to be against the Vikings next, right? I don't know if that's optimal by any means, but I mean, talk about the storylines there, pulling Cousins before that, just crazy. But I mean, if you have another game like this, yeah, it probably is Penix time.
Yeah, we did write that up, and actually I titled that ESPN, reports Kirk Cousins' future in doubt with Falcons, which, if you're talking about trading him in the offseason and someone accused that of clickbaiting title, his future is in doubt. I mean, every quarterback's is, but we talked about this last Monday. Was our entire show was we could see Penix sooner rather than later. Now, I meant next year. I still don't think there's virtually no chance. I said that about drafting a quarterback too, didn't I? Virtually no chance that Michael Penix is starting over a healthy Kirk Cousins while the Falcons are in playoff contention, which should be most of the rest of the season, because 500 gets you playoff contention. So I don't think that, but what happens though is he becomes expendable in the offseason. And if you're not going to make the playoffs anyway, what the hell do you need a $50 million 37-year-old quarterback for? The problem is, if he plays like this, you can't trade him. You'd have to eat a bunch of money anyway to try and do it. You're basically just going to have a $50 million backup quarterback, or move on from him completely, and eat a big dead cap number like Matt Ryan or Russell Wilson, which isn't ideal either. But The Falcons are sputtering, and they're sputtering right now. And frankly, they're going to be probably 5.5, 6-point underdogs, 6.5, right in there, 5.5 to 6.5 point underdogs to the Vikings. You've lost 4 in a row. Now you're 6-7. And frankly, you're out of first place because Tampa Bay is playing pretty well. And they've got the Raiders at home coming up. So you're now behind because they're 6-6 also. So bad things, Mike. Titus coming in, and he's dead. He's dead on this one. He goes, appreciate the super chat. He says, this one felt like a Desmond Ridder game. Yes, yeah, it did. Everything's going well except the quarterback. This one felt a little more familiar to us than, watching the team go out in the prevent defense and just continually watch teams drive. No. Falcons did their job. Jimmy Lake put in a 3-4. 4 defensive backs got out of that base nickel, went a little heavier, went a little bigger, and used the strength of the team, which is the depth across the defensive line. And frankly, a lot of those sacks, Nick, and part of this is against the weapons you're facing, were coverage sacks. They weren't just he's under fire. It was Justin Herbert dropping back, looking, sack. And good for them for keeping after it. But they were able to cover their receivers without having to go with a base nickel and going super light up front. Thank you.
I'll tell you though, I don't see that happening against the Chargers. And this is part of the Jim Harbaugh year 1 stuff. The offensive line is a weapon, but outside of McConkey, who pass catching wise is doing anything for that Chargers team, Quentin Johnson, just drops left and right. He's still having issues with that. Probably be different against the Vikings with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson, who's back from injury now and playing pretty good football. So I think it was very matchup dependent in that 3-4 base and the coverage sacks. Can't imagine that against one of the top 3 trio of pass catchers in football next week against the Vikings.
I still don't want them going back to that base nickel in 1st and 10. With a two-man front.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a 2-man front, and then you're looking at 2nd and 4 all day long. That's we've seen what that leads to against rookie quarterbacks and Cooper Rush, let alone Sam Darnold's playing really well, and they've got a host of weapons, and Kevin O'Connell's a hell of an offensive mind. You'll have if you try and play the Minnesota Vikings the way you played the Denver Broncos, you will get a Denver Broncos-like result. It will be 30-point game. So I don't expect that to happen. So we'll see. What I do expect to happen every single week, every single day, though, is this podcast powered by Lion Coffee. LionCoffee.com is Hawaii-based, or out in Hawaii. They're Hawaii roast, bean growers, roasters, shippers, brewers, all of it. They are a partner of the Falcons Podcast, and frankly, they keep us powered up on all of these because – yes, we are a morning podcast and we need our morning coffee from lioncoffee.com. And with the holiday season coming up, as one of our partners, you can get 20% off anything at lioncoffee.com except 100% Kona or full cases if you use the code GOFalcons20. So Lion Coffee absolutely powers us, Nick, powering us right now. This is not some Hollywood prop where they always hand empty cups. This one is full of the original blend right now, and it'll be empty by the time we get done today.
Yeah, no, my little guy, he's starting to get mobile right now, and he's really liking to sit himself up in the crib. And this morning at about 4:10, he was sitting up and he fell down and bonked himself on the side of the crib. So I've been up since then, along with my wife, and I've already had one of these since this morning because Lord knows I need it on a Monday after a 4-day weekend. You think you'd be rested after that, but too much football, too much fun. So Lion Coffee, shout out to them. God bless them. Shout out to Patrick, our main friend there on the inside. Yeah, the benefactor. And good stuff. Make sure you guys check it out.
Lance Rendar coming in with the super chat. Appreciate it. He says, Kirk's inconsistency and age is why I thought trading Penix for an edge was too wild in your article. And yeah, I was one of the first. I don't actually saw it might have been a fan-sided article I saw, but someone else had mentioned it before. I don't think they threw Penix in there, but I started thinking, going back to, the pass rush is dead. Kirk Cousins is playing lights out. I think this is coming off the Tampa Bay game. Can you get Penix for 1 more year, 2 more years, 3 more years, add to that, and then still get your quarterback over the course of that 3-year span? Was something I thought was worth exploring. I didn't think it would ever happen, but it's interesting. It got a lot of conversation, got a lot of hate from Falcons fans, which surprised me how untouchable Michael Penix has become. And after Kirk Cousins has played the way he has the last 3 weeks with 0 touchdowns and 6 interceptions and an 0-3 record, Michael Penix is up here now. Golly, you better not trade him. Jesus, we want him to start tomorrow.
Man.
Which, honestly, if we go back to January talking about what would we do with the resources on this team, that was always the number one option, Nick. Going with a rookie quarterback. If you're gonna be a better team, fighting for a playoff spot, right in there, 6-6, first place in a weaker division. Why not blood Michael Penix this year?
First-year head coach too, right?
First-year head coach, yeah. Instead, you spent a bunch of money in free agency and then basically forfeited a draft class. That's, let's say, unprecedented. And when I say forfeited a draft class, this class is not contributing to the Atlanta Falcons 2024 season at all. And if you go back to our draft reaction, that's what we said was going to happen based on the players they drafted and the needs on the team.
Yeah, pretty unbelievable. But, I mean, we said it then. I come back to the Packers. Now, granted, it's not a 1-for-1, but it took how long? 5 years for Jordan Love to really marinate and matter for that team. And being from Eastern Iowa, I have a lot of Packer fan friends. They're like, man, I'll never forgive the Packers for, forfeiting the end of Aaron Rodgers' career and wasting a first-round pick on Jordan Love. I'm like, if he hits and he's a franchise quarterback, it was not a waste. The quarterback valuation and impact it's a completely different realm. We've said it on here a lot. So we'll see about Michael Penix. I wonder how much
difference is there, Nick. The Packers were already a playoff team, so to speak. 1, 2. All of the quarterbacks that they drafted, the Packer model, all of those guys have been drafted in the 20s or later, not 8. 3, Jordan Love's 21 years old.
Yeah.
I'm watching the 2 24-year-old quarterbacks have really, really good seasons right now, rookie seasons, and Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix. And, that's one of the reasons why you get a little bit more of a mature quarterback. But again, going back to, will we see Michael Penix this year? I don't think so. I just don't, and certainly not this week up in Minnesota. Kirk Cousins is starting in Minnesota. Were they overlooking? Was the Chargers a trap game as they're looking for this Minnesota? No, not coming out of a bye. Going back to the second part of this from Lance, though. Pitts has no heart and Fontenot must go. Fontenot has his pluses and minuses. The team building aspect in the draft, I think the draft overall has been pretty poor. Honestly, I think it's been poor is a little bit like when you say poor, you say like D-. That's a little too harsh, but I would say C- at best going across there. When you think of the picks that the Falcons have had, 4, 8, 8, 8, and then the second round picks and everything to go with it. I should have some pretty good players. Well, he hit on, Drake London's really good and Bijan Robinson's really good. You drafted in the top 10. Those guys should be good. Kyle Pitts, their first move. I'm ready to be done with Kyle Pitts. Let's just go ahead and get that out there. When Lance says no heart, now the Kyle Pitts defenders are going to say that Kirk isn't targeting it. It's not his fault. He's being used incorrectly. Okay, well, we're in year 4 now. Okay, and if we go back 4 years ago, Nick, on one of the reasons why it was stupid to draft a pass catcher is because it is a dependent position. And your quarterback position isn't sorted at all. You got too many holes on the other team. By the time you can actually use Kyle Pitts, you've wasted his rookie contract. It never made any sense, and it doesn't make any sense. And it's only with hindsight, it's gotten worse, Nick.
I mean, especially in that 2021 draft class, which is just phenomenal. And we'll see how Penix works out with this one. But yeah, I mean, they're on a pretty incredible run of, especially not hitting in the front 7. I mean, how many resources they've used in the top 100 over the last, 5 years. You can say 4 if you want to just include the Fontenot years. But I mean, the 2021 Pitts, not a hit, obviously, with 4 overhaul. Richie Grant, I mean, not great. Jalen Mayfield, major whiff. Drake London's a hit. I'll give it to there.
Mhm.
Ebiketie is fine. Troy Anderson's been fine. Desmond Ridder, obviously a miss. D'Angelo Malone, obviously a miss. Those are all, 5 top 100 picks there. Bijan's a hit. We
Mhm.
can debate the running back stuff all you want, but he's, at least, a hit. Bergeron has been fine. Zach Harrison, I don't know if they know what they want to do with him, but for a third-round pick, he's not been a huge difference maker. That's kind of what you're expecting for an edge at third round. And then this draft, we're still waiting, but Penix, he could salvage it for sure. Ruka Rohiro, we're still waiting, but was he picked right before, right after Fisk? I can't remember, but Fisk has looked incredible. Trice had the injury. We're still waiting on that. Those are your top 100 picks. And how many guys out of that last 4-year run are really making a big difference on this team? Who's the best of them? Is it
Bijan, Bergeron, and London?
Yep, your early picks.
3 offensive players.
Congrats to Ebiketie, 3-sack game in this one, I believe. So
I think he had 2. Well, at least we wrote it up 2. I didn't check the box.
2. Yep, 2. You're right.
We wrote it up as 2. He's for a second round edge. I think he's a good second team player. As a starter, I don't think he's the guy. So talking about Fontenot must go. I think the free agency for the most part has been really good for the guys that they've brought in. Now you can say, what about Kirk Cousins? Well, what about Kirk Cousins? I can go through a lot of guys where his free agency, his pro scouting has been much better than the college ranks. Is my 4-year Twitter length grade of Terry Fontenot's job as the Atlanta Falcons general manager. They've done excellent work on the pro side with free agency. They've been below average on the college side when it comes to building this team. And Kyle Pitts, he's still pretty cheap next year for, relatively speaking, for a 5th-year option. He's like $10 million, so it's not going to change the salary cap. But at this point, I'd take a mid-round pick and salary cap relief for Kyle Pitts if it was offered in the offseason. And he may turn out to be the man. He's still really young, but I don't really think it's going to happen in Atlanta. He needs a change of scenery. He needs a different voice. And he needs a wake-up call because the effort just isn't out there. It's just, we're talked about this freak, this unicorn. No, when I say that about Tyreek Hill, I see those stats. When I say that about Adrian Peterson or Derrick Henry, I see that show up. I don't see that show up in Kyle Pitts at all. And that right now it's a miss and it's a sunk cost. And I would explore moving on from him in the offseason if possible. Greg Kicks, good to see, says Kirk was absolutely atrocious yesterday. Yeah, and it started early. He was bad, and I actually have used that. I don't know if I used it in the Facebook description or something, but I have used the word atrocious to describe Kirk Cousins' play yesterday as well, Nick.
Yeah, he was not very good. Obviously, it started off bad, and it just got worse. The pick 6, late on that one. Do you think there was a miscommunication on the pick 6? Because it looked kind of weird from Mooney, and Cousins was slow to it. And that's just a cross-field flat in that situation. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. That might have been a 4th down too, but that throw just Mooney looked weird on it too. I think that maybe there was miscommunication. Shout out to that again. Shout out to that Chargers defender, whoever that was on that side of the ball. Was it Still? Yeah, the 5th round rookie, I think. Still, but he had a heck of a game, 2 picks. But yeah, just a horrible game from Cousins, and pressure's on now, no doubt. Scott, the playoff probability for the Falcons and the this is interesting. I'm curious about how this one actually works.
50% at this point.
It has the Falcons at 57%, and it has the Buccaneers at 58%. So I don't really understand how they're both.
I would right at this point in time, I like the Buccaneers' chances to make the playoffs more than I like the Atlanta Falcons. And part of that is scheduling. The Falcons go at Vikings, at Raiders, Giants at home, at Commanders, Panthers. So 3 on the road, 2 of them against playoff teams. And then the Buccaneers final schedule goes Raiders at home, at Chargers, at Cowboys, Panthers, and Saints. So 1 playoff team in the Chargers and it's away. Everything else, the rest of their they're at Cowboys too. So 3 of their final 5 games are at home. So I like the Buccaneers' chances right now. And if the Falcons don't make the playoffs, you look at that schedule, Nick, and you say, okay, I mean, assuming, because right now, the way they're playing right now, they can't beat anybody because they keep finding different ways to lose. But, this was a tough stretch for them with the Broncos and then Chargers and that Vikings. So losing those 3, that's why you needed the Saints game. That's why the Saints game really hurt. And blowing that one yesterday because you're coming up. But Raiders, you can beat the Raiders. Giants at home, you should win that game, okay? So let's go 6-7. You're to 8-7, and then you're at Commanders and then Panthers at home. You're looking best case right now. What's that, 9-8?
Probably. I mean, 9-8. I will say, I mean, it's unfortunate. I don't know how much you caught of the Buccaneers game yesterday, but they got a horseshoe up there. You know what? With that Chuba Hubbard.
I watched a good bit of it yesterday.
Yeah, that Chuba Hubbard fumble. I feel terrible for him, and that's I wouldn't count off the Panthers either. I mean, they're playing much better football, and with how the Falcons are playing, I wouldn't assume any game. But also, I mean, the Buccaneers. I think Baker Mayfield got hurt in this last game as well. So what's going on there? I really like their offensive scheme. I think Falcons might be lucky that back-to-back years offensive coordinator from the Buccaneers is picked off as a head coach somewhere. Liam Cohen might be number 2 if behind Ben Johnson this offseason cycle, given what he's done with Baker and that team playing better than last year. I think I like the design better. But we'll see what happens here. I think Buccaneers are poor enough, and Baker Mayfield's, injured, and he had a horrible game against the Panthers too, that I wouldn't outright assume that they're going to beat the Raiders. I wouldn't outright assume that the Falcons are the most winnable game. Do they both play the Giants? That's the only team out of all of those that I think has no heart left. You watch a team that looks like they quit. They look like they quit. Raiders don't look like they've quit yet.
Are they at Giants? I don't remember. I think that's what I said. Let me find Buccaneers again. Buccaneers, Tampa schedule. They're Raiders at home, at Chargers, at Cowboys, and then Panthers at home, Saints at home.
See, I think those
so
are
they beat the Giants. They beat the Giants last week, 30-7.
Yeah. I mean, out of all those teams, Chargers, Vikings, probably about equal overall. Commanders are the best, second best team on that list. But I think there's still a chance, and you have that. Obviously, there's still a chance. You got 5 games.
Still a chance, but when I'm talking playoff odds right now, I'd put my money on Tampa making the playoffs and the Falcons missing it.
Yeah, you do have that in your back pocket head to head, which is the reason that you're in right now, and they're out. But yeah, Falcons are going the wrong way. So we're doom and gloom right now. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the Jeremy Fowler stuff. We can talk about that more now, Scott, if you want, or we can also save that for Wednesday about the trade market with Cousins, because this is an absolutely craptastic quarterback class coming up here. As bad as he's been playing, somebody's going to be interested in him. Now, you might have to eat a lot of the salary, or you might not get very much if a team takes the salary, but to get him off the books and open way for Penix, that might be a viable option all the same. But I do want to circle back around. It's doom and gloom right now. That's a good Chargers team that you played, and you made them not look good, and the defense.
Real quick, because I want to put a bow on this with what Corey says, because with the schedule, because Corey's got a super chat in, it fits in with what we were talking about. He says we should beat Carolina, Las Vegas, and New York. But we needed a win over the Chargers or the Vikings to win the division. We're 0-1 when the smoke clears, and that's reality. Yeah, and so now Vikings becomes a must-win game. We'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. But losing that one to the Chargers, you blew the Chargers game and you blew the Saints game. Otherwise, this isn't even a conversation anymore. It's 8-4, and we can talk about Kansas City and pass interference and all this stuff and whatever. That one's gone. That was a tight game. Could have gone either way. You blew the Saints game. You blew the Chargers game. So I'm with you on this, Corey, and they've certainly made it tough on themselves. Which would it be the Atlanta Falcons if they didn't?
No. It's kind of how it works out, isn't it, for the Falcons a lot of times? But again, back to the point here. Cousins had a horrible game, and if he plays like that against the Vikings, he might be benched, and we might have a totally different conversation the last part of the season. But that said, the defense looked serviceable at worst. Now, again, this is a very one dynamic Chargers team, but Herbert has looked like an MVP a lot this season, and he emphatically did not against this Falcons team. They had some punch to them. They had some life. Now, it's a one-game sample size against one opponent. You never know if it's just like a matchup or if they figured something out. You need to see it multiple times before you believe it. But if they can look like that, Scott, you're going to have a chance to win some games and win differently than we've seen. I just want to make sure that that's not the defense we've seen all year. That's a totally different one. Is it a one-off game? We'll see. But
it was nice to see the adjustments coming out of the bye.
A little bit more aggressive. I mean, they look competent out there. They're tackling well. Terrell had some great plays. He's a heck of a player. I love AJ Terrell. So it's not all doom and gloom here. Cousins had a horrible game, and you lost a game you should have won. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. That's Falcons in and up, right? That's as you say. But you still have 5 games, and defense can play like that. You got a shot in each and every one of them.
Yeah, and again, you'd like to say, okay, Kirk Cousins isn't going to play like that, but he's played pretty poorly. As Jimmy is saying on Facebook, he says, man, Kirk's been horrible for 3 straight games. Yeah, he has been. He's been poor. And and then it's kind of infectious, when you're playing like that, it's like a virus. I mean, then Drake London's dropping third. Drake London doesn't drop third down passes. He just doesn't do that. Bijan Robinson doesn't get tackled in the open field. That doesn't happen. The LA Chargers, they're just watching them tackle. I was like, these guys, their yard after contact and yard after catch stats have to be phenomenal because their tackling's pretty consistent. You're either good tacklers or you're not, and they're second in yards after the catch. They are second in the NFL in the least amount of yardage given up, which didn't surprise me because they were locking up some pretty shifty guys in the open field and whatnot. So they did a good job of making you earn it. And the Falcons did. And then it helps when you've got a couple of good edge rushers as well. If you're trying to, like the Falcons before had basically said, we don't think you can go 12 plays without making a mistake. That's kind of how the Chargers were playing yesterday. But they also have a couple of man-eating edge rushers that can force mistakes. And then Derwin James on the backside, kind of like Jesse Bates. The difference is the guys up front. Mike Harvey coming in with a little NFL stuff. He says the hit on Trevor Lawrence, should that Texan player be suspended for the season? I don't know what the precedent is for that type of thing. As far as, let's say, take this from the NFL Players Union, was there intent there, or was it just a heat of the moment mistake? I don't know. But it was, when I see a guy go after somebody's knees, I'm a little more harsh on this. This one looked like a bad play, like you've seen guys go for that play before and not connect, skim over the top and get a penalty. This one, again, you can't judge intent. It was awful. For the season, I would say probably not. Would I suspend him for the whole season? Probably not. Do I think it was terrible? Yes, I do. Do I think it deserves more than the typical 15-yard penalty? Yeah, and a fine, the $30,000 fine that comes with it? Yeah, probably. I'd throw a suspension on there too, just because in soccer, we call that one with violent contact, with violent conduct. Comes with a 4-game suspension. Yeah, it was bad. If you haven't seen it, Trevor Lawrence, as soon as you slide, you give yourself up. You're not allowed to touch the quarterback. That's been a rule for as long as I can remember. And he got planted. He got hit and then driven into the ground while he was going down, which forces your head up against that hard turf too. And that's where the concussions come in. And it was brutal.
Yeah, he got hit in the head while he was sliding forward, tried to escape the pocket to the left. Aziz Al-Shahir.
Yeah, he issued an apology just a few minutes ago on X.
On X, wrote something up. When you watch it from the coach's angle, I guess it doesn't look as terrible. Things are happening so fast on the field that when you watch it in slow motion, everything looks much worse. He definitely deserves to be fined, and I think, 2 to 4 game suspension makes sense. It's a tough, rough game. And when you escape the pocket like that, there is going to be risk that things like that can happen, of course. I think the hit was bad, but I don't think he should be suspended for life kind of hit. Also, I think that the players that came to hit, the Jags players that came rushing, ready to fight Al Shahir, are also correct in this. You have to get up there, and if your quarterback takes a hit like that, you better be ready to decapitate some people. I think I saw Brandon Sheriff get up in him and remove his helmet. And Brandon Sheriff, Iowa Hawkeye, I've ran into him actually at the grocery store before. He's a horrifying person. I would have
those offensive tackles, who are they're just. I refer to those guys as just different caliber of human beings. I mean, to be 6'6", 330 pounds, you just don't realize how big that is.
Yeah,
I would have fit 6'6", 300.
Yeah. He is a scary person. He probably had like 30 pounds of meat in his grocery cart and like nothing else. But
we've seen guys go after people's knees. The worst one I can remember ever seeing was the Jim McMahon one a long time ago. That might have been against the Giants. The play's gone, and the dude grabs him around grabs him around in a bear hug and throws him down on his shoulder. I'm like, that's a you're out of the league, you're done kind of thing. Yeah. This one will have a bunch of debate, and I don't know exactly how I feel about this one, Mike. I would be willing to listen as far as, how long should it be? I think 2 games would be fair. I think a 2-game suspension would be fair on that, and he's, without pay. It'd be pretty significant. But let's get back here. Appreciate you, Mike. Greg come back. He says, seems like we can't get chemistry of balanced football. When the offense is good, the defense is horrible. And the defense is good, the offense was trash. Don't forget the special teams. When the other things are going good, Kuz missing field goals, or, guys are returning kicks on the Falcons. And part of that is first-year head coach, rookie offensive coordinator, rookie defensive coordinator, and getting it all together, and a bunch of new pieces coming together, which was one of the keys to the season we hit on. And, are you continuing to make the same mistake twice? That's what scared me about the defense. The defense was making the same mistakes from a game planning standpoint over and over and over and over and over again. That's what I get passionate about. That drives me absolutely batty.
Yeah.
If Kirk, I don't know. I'm at a loss on this. What would it take short of an injury for Kirk Cousins to sit and to see Michael Penix? I don't know if there's an answer to that question with 5 games left in the season. I don't know if there's an answer to that question, Nick. I think they're going to ride or die with Kirk Cousins this year.
If you're in the playoff hunt and the players in the locker room have lost belief, there might be, and you front office, fighting for their job as well, and you're in the mix of it. If you think Penix gives you a better chance, there's definitely a way to make that switch, but it has to become from like a grassroots movement in the locker room. And right now, there might even be an argument from that. Kirk Cousins is so immobile, it's limiting your drop back game. There's absolutely no boot action off this as well. You can't do anything with a moving pocket in the run game, leaving meat on the bone in the ground game as well with that, because he is so immobile. Yeah. So if he comes out and has an absolute stinker against the Vikings, I could see them making a move. Now that would be obviously, nail in the coffin of the Kirk Cousins era in the Falcons, and whatever that means for the offseason, we'll talk about that when we get there. But I do think there is a way outside of injury that could happen because you are in the thick of things. You already paid Cousins. It's not like he's a franchise legend or anything. It's not like he's been in that locker room for a long time. So if there's swell of support for a change from the locker room, then I could see something happening.
We'll see. It certainly put more heat on him the second they drafted Michael Penix, for sure, because the cries are louder. And that's what I put in the title of this show. Kirk Cousins implodes as calls for Michael Penix Jr. grow louder. Well, yeah. If you're gonna lose, if you're not winning games because of Kirk Cousins, we want to see the future. That's not a hot take. We want to see the future. But and Renee comes in. Good to see you. Renee says, good morning, guys. The draft grade is definitely low. When we get back, throw it back to the discussion of Terry Fontenot's job and job security. I said I think his draft is probably below average. And I think on the whole, the free agency, the pro scouting team has been lights out. I think they've been really, really good. When you talk, you can talk about piecing together a team for the first 2 years with no money and signing guys like Abdullah Anderson, who was just awesome. He was so good to put together 7 wins. And then, then the next year, all those guys on defense they brought in were all hits last year, from David Onyemata, who I think, speaking of washed, it's time to move on from David Onyemata next year. We can get into that later. Jesse Bates, home run. Caden Ellis, money well spent. Then this year you go to Darnell Mooney. Awesome. Ray McLeod has overachieved. On the other side of the ball, Justin Simmons played a pretty good game yesterday. I think that is scheme more than scouting. Who are some? Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree were absolute hits last year. So, yeah. But getting to the Cousins thing, this has probably been asked, but is Cousins playing hurt? Or is it just regression we're witnessing? And someone in the chat earlier said it's just hard to see. It's hard to say that you've fallen off the cliff, that this is regression, when he's got a 500-yard, 4-touchdown game and looked absolutely fantastic. And again, that's against a bad Buccaneers pass defense. But this week, I don't care who you are playing. If you hold a team to 38 yards indoors in the second half, you had a hell of a defensive game. If you threw for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns against anybody, you had a good game. You can throw the ball.
Yeah, I don't know if he's hurt or if he's just playing like his age, of a quarterback his age that was never a very athletic player for the quarterback position in the NFL. Regressing and getting older and coming off an Achilles. I mean, is he hurt? Is he ever going to be healthy? I mean, those are the questions we don't have, but that's kind of a risk when you sign a quarterback like this at that age. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and talk out both sides of my mouth. When the offseason happened, I'm like, hey, this team, opportunity here. If Cousins is healthy, I would make a move for him, thinking that, you could go that way or the draft, one or the other, not both. Maybe in hindsight, I mean, obviously in hindsight, you probably either just sign Kirk or go with Penix or whatever. But now we are where we are. Is he playing hurt? I don't think he's healthy, and he might never be healthy. This might just be the baseline. He looks completely immobile. Honestly, I'm even more impressed with the offensive line and the run game, given how immobile he is, how tough their task is. I think Falcons fans can kind of remember what it looked like at the end for Matt Ryan. That's we're having flashbacks right now with this team with better infrastructure in place on the offensive side of the ball than what the end of Matt Ryan had. But yeah, this looks pretty DOA. And the one thing you do have going for you guys, Falcons fans, is that, again, I said it earlier, this draft class at quarterback is terrible. There are way more people. It's a game of musical chairs where there's 2 chairs and 10 people playing, right? So somebody will take Kirk Cousins off your hands. You're not going to get a first-round pick for him, but you're going to be able, I'm pretty sure you'll still have some ability demand for him where you're not going to be totally hamstrung and have to Brock Osweiler trade him like the Texans did. But
yeah, and here's the thing, and before somebody in the comments, it was probably too late actually, so I'll address this now, and hopefully you watch far enough that you can delete this. Kirk Cousins has a no trade clause. Yeah, he does. And if he's not starting in Atlanta, he will waive that no trade clause for a chance to start somewhere else. I mean, that's that. And again, if we wanted to talk about not even moving on from Kirk Cousins, but starting the Michael Penix Jr. era, then it doesn't matter because you're not necessarily trading him. He's just a really, really expensive backup. So moving on from Kirk Cousins has zero to do with his no trade clause because you've already got his successor lined up. So, but we'll see. The thing is, Renee, the regression is, and people who have watched Kirk Cousins a lot longer than I have said he has susceptible to WTF games every now and then. Unfortunately, as you've gotten a little older, he strung a couple of those together. And again, I posted yesterday, like before his second interception, after he'd missed a couple guys for first downs. Frankly, he could add a couple more. There was a nice 4th down conversion that got a little lucky on that because the corner jumped the route on that one too. So he's not this bad. So hopefully we'll start see things getting better. but you better have the hot route dialed in. What I felt like I saw tighter splits from Drake London against pressure for the slant route, and I'm here for that. That was an adjustment I think we saw got made. If pressure's coming, Drake's there in the slot. He's a bigger, physical, more reliable receiver than Darnell Mooney in traffic in the hot route, Nick.
And I know we got Zach here real quick. I feel like what matters in the end is the results, but the process of these games, two of these last 3 losses for the Falcons are games that you should have won. I mean, just all the advanced stats say that you falconed it, but that Saints game, you moved the ball pretty well. You gave up those 2 big plays that you hadn't done really all year. That's the difference in the game. This game, I mean, you just absolutely, the difference in the yardage per play, the amount of plays ran, Scott, I mean, just outstanding differences there, and you lose. It's just, these are 2 games. If you generic NFL teams and you ran simulators, which again, that's not how it works. You play the games on the field, but Falcons win this game 90% of the time, even with the turnovers, with how much they outgained them and how much they stymied the Chargers. But in the end, I mean, the results are the results. So again, it seems like we're definitely on the end of the plank right now with this Falcons team, but over a large enough sample size, I think I got to trust the process and the overall stats on the team. I think they still got a chance. We should let it play out, of course. That's why the results seem to be 50-50 Bucks Falcons still. But again, the season's not over. I know it's in this moment, it feels really bad, especially because you've lost 2 or 3 games you should have won. But 2 or 3 that you should have won. We're not winning that Bronco game. They beat you every way.
Yeah.
But that still, so you got 5 games to figure it out. We're going to find out about Raheem Morris. We're going to find out about the leaders of this locker room. And are they going to come back angry and play a damn good game against, I mean, you win this game against the Vikings here. You talked about 6.5-point dogs, probably. You win that game against the Vikings here. You're like, oh my gosh, all we have left is a tough game against the Commanders. Who knows? So
it's 5 right now. The opening
5?
line is 5. So
we'll see. But still, obviously, everything to play for. You're right in the thick of things. It's not worked out like you wanted these last 3 games, but you've moved the ball. You have playmakers. Defense has some life in it. We're going to find out about the mental fortitude and the gumption of the coaching staff and the players in the locker room. And even if they don't, make it in the end, you can still find that stuff out.
Zach, what is bringing up the third rail of this Atlanta Falcons team? And I know there's a lot of conversation on it. We've touched on it, but we'll get into it a little bit more now on how it affects game planning. He says, and thank you for the super chat. Love that orange. Love that truck too. He says, morning, fellas. What do you make of Koo not being healthy, making arguably an 11-point swing in a 4-point game? Pick 6 on 4th down, at least 2 field goal tries not attempted with a miss. Does that fall on Fontenot or Raheem? Right now, I would say it kind of falls on Koo. Now, Koo is battling a hip injury. I don't know how long that's been going on or if that's been affecting the slump. We don't really know. This was the first time that he had shown up on any type of injury report, and they were nervous enough about it that they elevated Riley Patterson, who they signed this week, to the active roster as a practice squad elevation, and then they put him on the inactive list right before the game. So basically, as a game time decision, Koo, how you feeling? I feel good. I'm good to go. Okay, then we're going to make Patterson inactive. But it was close enough that Patterson was elevated from the practice squad on Saturday before being a game time decision on Sunday. Nick, you gonna join us here again?
Yep. Sorry, I was looking at the stats from this game still. Gosh, just trying to make sense of it. I'm here.
Yep. You're because your camera's been out for about 90 seconds now. There we go.
All right, we're here.
Yep. But it absolutely affects the way you call the game, because if I'm 4th and 3 from the 35 earlier in the game, I'm kicking a field goal. I'm not going for it. And the Falcons have gone for it a lot, and they've made it a lot. They've been really, really good. One of the best 4th down teams in the NFL this year. But it absolutely affects the way you game plan when your kicker's hitting 50% of makeable field goals, where you should be hitting 95% of those. It changes the way you call the game, and it changes the way it puts more pressure on the offense to execute when you get down there, instead of knowing, okay, we can play a little looser here because we know we have at least 3. That little bit of pressure. It's fine margins that we talk about in between winning and losing. Does this fall on Fontenot or Raheem? part of it's right now it's just on Koo's struggles. Now, what are you going to do? Are you ready? You ready to completely move on from Koo? I don't know if that's the answer either. There's a couple hard questions surrounding this team right now. There's some easy ones, but there's a few hard ones, and Younghoe Koo is one of those hard questions.
If he's not healthy, he probably shouldn't be kicking. I mean, I heard pregame he was struggling. They had the other guy up there. I don't know exactly what they're doing on that one. It's not been great. Regardless, you're gonna have to bring in some competition this offseason for him. There has to be some level of standards, right? And what he's done this season has not been enough. Has he been injured? Maybe, but also, are you going to be injured again next season? You're making money, and kickers are replaceable. So it's not like a long-time franchise quarterback who's all of a sudden has the yips here for a little bit. Oh, we have the broader sample size. You're a kicker. You're replaceable. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Koo, but he definitely needs some competition. And if he's not healthy, I don't know why you play him. We got Sam Klontz coming in here. 499 says, stop me if you've heard this before. Raheem Morris led team starting it off well, then sputtering, and Koo is cooked. We'll see about Koo. He looks pretty cooked. He did hit some in the game still. 1 for 2, I think. Not good enough. That was not like a very hard kick, especially with kickers making unbelievable.
Neither was the first one he missed, Nick.
Oh yeah, I'm saying the one that he missed was chip shot. So, but yeah, Mahoris. I don't know enough about Raheem Morris with those Buccaneers teams to say that a Raheem Morris led team is starting off well and then sputtering. You could say probably the same thing about Kirk Cousins, right? The joke of Kirktober. But it's again, I said it earlier. We're gonna find out about the gumption and the fortitude of this team over this final 5-game stretch, because pretty disheartening loss in this one. You should have won. Are they going to rally around the quarterback? Do they have the leaders in the locker room and the coaching staff to figure it out and come up with a game plan? Or are they just going to kind of a team that, I mean, Vikings are going to punch you in the mouth. Are you just going to crumple after that and, in a fetal position, or are you going to get back up and, swing back? So
yeah,
huge.
You better have an answer to their pressure, whether it's, fade routes outside or one-on-ones, contested catches. I mean, we say it every week. This is a time for, Kyle Pitts. He should see single coverage, throw him open. Drake London, this is where you need your big guys to step in, because there will be a lot of single coverage on the outsides because they'll have 8 guys in the box. This team, for everything that we've complained about with the Atlanta Falcons playing a prevent defense for, the first 11 games of the season, the Vikings are the exact opposite. They'll put 11 guys on the line of scrimmage and say, you try and figure out. They're in like punt block formation is their base defense. We're going to put all these guys on the line of scrimmage, and you're going to try and figure out where we're coming from. So the fade route can be big. The fades and goes can be really big on this because it's tough to figure out where the pressure is going to be and where their defenders are going to be. Well, I know I've got single coverage on the outside. That's kind of a given. Can my guy beat your guy?
One thing the Falcons do have going for them in this matchup is they are not a heavy 12 or 21 formation team. And when you have condensed boxes, formations wise, offensively, you can be a lot more tricky in your pressure packages. But if you spread things out, there's only so many guys you can have in the box to account for bodies, right? So who's coming, who's going. If you're playing 11 personnel, it is a little harder to be tricky with those looks. Now you can get some rovers, the slot player coming in on a blitz package, but I do think that. I mean, we'll see what the Vikings do in this one. They actually played a lot of man coverage against the Cardinals yesterday, so I was interesting to see that. But with how immobile Cousins is, and with the questions on the offensive line, like, do they actually have to be, hit the cover? What is it called? Engage 8 blitz over and over again in this game? I don't know if they have to do it, but it's going to be an interesting cat and mouse game beyond the storylines of Kirk Cousins returning to the Vikings and everything.
Yeah, it'll be a big. It's going to be a big storyline this week, that's for sure. Because he left. They wanted him back. They wanted to draft a backup. Not a backup, but you know what I mean. They wanted to draft a successor, and he was like, "No, I want out of there." And then he comes to Atlanta, and they draft a successor, which Viking fans have gotten a kick out of. MUT Shane, appreciate you. That seems like a newer name, especially to the super chat realm. So thank you so much for the support of the show. It means a lot. Helps keep these lights on and keeps my forehead nice and shiny. And Grand Limousine, he's coming in as well. He says, get rid of the pistol offense and get a better Kirk. What was the one? I wanted to throw in another comment I saw earlier. Apologize, I don't remember who it was, but I did see it and was like, yeah, you're right. was, and what's with the wide receiver jet sweeps on short yardage on not 2nd and 1. That's kind of an interesting time to use it, but on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, where they're doing their damnedest to crash, you got to get the edge. If you can get the edge against that defense, you're money. But they're crashing. It's hard to get the edge on when they're coming into the backfield because they're selling out on the run. Those were kind of frustrating on those to watch for sure. Get rid of the pistol and get a better Kirk. I'm okay with them running the pistol, honestly. I mean, what would you say is one of the detractors of the pistol? I mean, who would that hurt the worst, Nick? Who's it in a pistol offense opposed to, behind center or a standard shotgun with them beside you? Who is at the least advantage? Who does that affect the most?
You talking from the defensive side?
From the offensive side of the ball. Like, okay, we don't run this because it hurts this player.
I think it's just kind of a head start for the play action game because Cousins is so immobile now, but you still want to have the option to hand it off, so he gets a head start essentially back there. Now, I think if you had a more mobile quarterback, it'd be more under center. You'd have the option to get back there more, to get out and move the pocket and whatnot. But it allows your less than mobile quarterback to still have some play action looks back there. We saw it a lot with the Rams last season. They also have an aging quarterback whose mobility is dipping. So I think it's trying to still work in some of the run and play action concepts that have been a tenet of the McVay offense while dealing with the reality of a very immobile quarterback.
Yeah, and for my answer on that was I think it probably puts the running back at the biggest disadvantage, honestly, and that doesn't seem to be a problem with this team. So I don't think the pistol offense is really hurting Bijan Robinson.
Maybe it is. Maybe he's here and he could be.
I know. And especially when we start seeing if teams, I think Harbaugh saw what we saw early. Their quarterback's off. Stop the run. Sell out. Because then they did. Bijan was running. And then when they started to throw, they're missing open receivers. Kirk's missing open receivers. It's like, no. 7. Stop 7. And we'll worry about everything else. And they sold out to stop the run on this. And I think that was one of the bigger differences. That said, the Falcons moved the ball just fine and just gave the ball away in critical situations, including a missed field goal. This one wasn't hard to diagnose. How did the Falcons lose this game? Easy. Their quarterback blew a fuse. And the kicker missed a makeable field goal. That's it. Done. That's all the analyzation we need. The bigger analyzation for what we've been talking about for an hour is when do you make a change? Is it possible? I don't think a change happens this year. And hopefully, what I'm hoping for you Falcons fans is we don't have to find out. We don't have to find out how bad Kirk Cousins has to play for a change to be made. Okay, if he plays, 4 more games like this and they don't make a change, the answer was never. They weren't ever going to make a change. Hopefully he plays similar to how he was playing earlier in the season, and then you don't have to ask the question. That's my hope for the Falcons family out there.
Yeah, we're going to find out, right? A big game this next one. Don't want to say it's a make or break for the season, but it could be for sure. So you let this one get away, and doom and gloom right now. Positive, though, the defense showed up. And this is something you've been calling for, just more bodies on the line of scrimmage, more interior defensive linemen. Is it going to work every week? Chargers want to play that 12 and 21. It's a little easier to play base when you have more bodies in the box, right? But we will we'll see this week against a much different, more versatile offense with Sam Darnold. Man, he can make 3 incredible throws a game, but he's also going to throw 3 at the defense too, where he loses his mind. It's the yin and yang of Sam Darnold, but a huge game coming up here. And again, the advanced stats, the last 2 of the last 3 games have said the Falcons should win, but you don't. Hopefully the process leads to better results, because in the end of the day, you can do everything better in the box score, but all that matters in the end is the points, and you lose. So,
and again, let me sum this up on the hour mark as we're going to get out of here. Down here in the South, we call that falconing.
Yep.
So
and I see
on
Jeremy
that,
in here. We're not doing Broncos for breakfast today because we're going to do it tomorrow tomorrow morning after the Monday night game.
That's right. So no Broncos for breakfast following this. If you want to talk some football in the morning, we will be at youtube.com/Mile High Huddle to talk Broncos Browns, one of the good orange rivalries of the 80s with the Broncos and Browns on Monday Night Football tonight. On that note, we're going to get out of here. Want to say thank you to our very special super chat and stars givers. I'm going to go in reverse order here and go with Grand Limousine, MUT Shane, Sam coming in, Zach coming in orange. Thank you so much. Renee over there on Facebook, Greg Custom Kicks, Mike Harvey, Corey Carter. Greg was in twice. Lance, Titus, good to see you. Mike was in a couple of times. And of course, Michael Ron Keogh with the hot pink coming in hot. So kicking off our December the right way. Hopefully the Falcons can do that next week. It's going to be tough in Minnesota. Minnesota fans, I don't know if they hate everybody the way they hate Atlanta Falcons. Does this go back to 98? I mean, I'm still pissed about 91 World Series. We're even. That's the way I see it is, don't tell me about 98. I was there in 91. So we're even when it comes to heartbreak between the two cities as far as I'm concerned. Let's focus on somewhere else. Both of us, neither one of us have a Super Bowl, so we can root for each other. Just maybe not at the same time. But we're going to get out of here. We'll be back on Wednesday to talk a little bit more Vikings Falcons as we get into it. But I want to say thank you for being with us. Thank you to Lion Coffee. As we approach the holidays, make sure you go to lioncoffee.com. Check the description for your code, GoFalcons20. On that note, thanks for being everybody. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Peace.